Kakalosh Boker Tov. We're just going to take a few days to do the different rules that what happens if a person is going to be finding himself on the path, meaning traveling on Erev Shabbat. So first we're going to start, obviously there's going to be with the cars, then afterwards there's going to be with trains, with planes. So that's what it's going to take for the next 2 or 3 days. So the first halakha is going to be as follows. Licha techila, obviously a person is obligated to travel from one place to another place on Erev Shabbat, and he has to properly calculate the times in order to make sure that he's going out early enough in order to make sure that he gets there before Shabbat. He shouldn't come and start going so late, right, that obviously that he could get into trouble or get into any type of a puncture, whatever, that he won't be able to get there in time. And it's actually brought down in Siman Shmem Tet that the rabbi is prohibited to go very, very far, whether it's going to be more than Shalosh Parsaot, which is again, every parsa is 72 minutes. So he says whether you're getting there to go back to your house, or you're getting to somebody else's house, and this, even though this doesn't apply that much nowadays, still, nowadays it does apply the concept that you do have to get to your destination before Shabbat, and in order, enough time before Shabbat, in order to ascertain that there will not be any type of Chilul Shabbat. Now, the more so if you're coming and you're getting, right, whether it's going to be another, for example, you're getting another Jew with you, whether you're taking a taxi or other things like that, you have to be very, very careful. So today what we're going to speak about is if you're traveling in a car and Shabbat already comes in. What does that mean? So halakha number 1, imagine right now you're traveling in a car, right? It's Erev Shabbat, you do not have a goy. Now, for whatever reason, you got stuck on the path and you realize that it's going to become Shekiah soon. Now, you yourself, you're driving the car and there's a chashash of sakanat nefashot to stay there. For example, whatever it is, whether it's bandits, whether it's robbers, or it could be that it's too hot or it's too cold, whatever the case is, it's a sakana for you to be there. So he comes and he says like this, he says, especially if you have younger children with you, so he says you're allowed to continue driving until after, right? He says even after Tzetok Kochavim, until you get to the first place where you are certain that nothing will go wrong, which means you're basically allowed to continue driving on Shabbat. Again, there's already Sakarat Nefashot, so therefore you continue driving until you get to the first destination that you know that you're safe where you're going to be. Now it doesn't matter whether, right, over there you're not going to have Tfilah B'tzibur, you're not going to have Kiddush, you're not going to have nothing. It doesn't matter, but the second that you get to the first destination, you're going to stop because you know that right here, there's no sakana anymore, there's no danger. So that's what you're going to be doing. Immediately when you get there, you're not allowed to stop. And then he says, and also you're not allowed to turn off the car, right? So what would happen is you just have to stop, right, go to the side, and that's it. And you're just leaving the car there, I guess, until it runs out of gas or whatever it is, and that's it. Fine. What happens right now, he says, is if right now coming and you're saying there's no chashash sakanat nefashot, so therefore it's samuk l'shkiat hachama, so again you're obligated to stop. And even if you don't have, as we mentioned before, the yain for kiddush or the tefillah b'tzibur or all the other things, it doesn't matter. You're not allowed to be over an isur doraita in order to be mekayem any mitzvah. It doesn't matter even if they're very, very important mitzvot. And they didn't also permit you to go and to start walking outside of the Tchum HaShabbat to inside of the Tchum HaShabbat. Why? Because again, as long as there's no sakana, there's nothing for what to do. The last halakha which we're going to mention is that what happens if you have a goy with you? So he comes and he says like this. He says, let's say there's no sakanat nefashot to be there, but you have a goy. So the goy is with you, and the goy himself wants to go to the city for himself. He doesn't want to stay here, right, for the entire Shabbat. So therefore he comes and he says, you could be mekel that the goy will come and he will be able to start driving. So he says like this, he says, and therefore he comes and he says, why? He says because the goy is doing it for himself. Now, you're benefiting, that's fine, but as long as he's doing it for himself, there's not going to be a problem. Now, even though usually the fact that you're sitting in the car is already going to be a problem, he says in this case, since it's going to be obviously a shat dacha gadol, he says, so therefore, right, as long as you're sitting in the car and you're not doing any type of melacha, you could be mekel that the goy will come and start driving, and he's the one that's going to take you to the destination. And then obviously you're not doing any other averot, obviously you can't get out of the car, he has to open up the door for you in order for you to get out, and all these things. These are all just the starting of the halachot. Whenever it is that you do have to be in such a situation, right, you would have to leave your items in the car, right? You're not going to start taking them out of the car, right? Whatever it is that you have. But again, these are just two different cases, and B'ezrat Hashem, within the next few days, we'll speak about that it's actually happened. I remember people calling me up and telling me, Rabbi, it's in a plane, it's going to be on a train, it's going to be in all these different things. What exactly are you supposed to do when this was not predetermined, meaning it wasn't planned, and for whatever extenuating circumstances this happened, how you're supposed to get out of it, or what are you supposed to act in these cases?